Hello, this is the LEGO DC Superheroes Batman Scarecrow Harvest of Fear set. Getting one of the smaller, less significant things out of the way first, this innocent farmer's tractor is actually a really nice build. I like the design of this thing. It looks kind of old, it's been patched up a bit, it's got a couple of stickers to represent battle damage over time. A little bit of effort made to give you just a hint of engine detail back behind there. I like the piece that was used for the front axle, adds in a little detail itself. And they've got mismatched panels for the rear fenders. One of these has a sticker on the top of it, and the other side is done in brown. You know, just these little silver stud pieces, I think, add a lot of character in the places that they've been put. And it has a trailer hitch on the back, although there's nothing in this set that you can hitch up to that. The seat rest is done pretty nicely too. You adjust the angle of that. I just like this thing, even though it's small and not one of the key things in this set. It's actually one of my favorites. Scarecrow's Combine here is a nice build itself, and I particularly like the color scheme of this one. It seems like the dark tan and the brown and the dark brown aren't used together very frequently in the LEGO world, especially with more urban sorts of stuff, vehicles and such. But then that has a certain amount of kind of earthiness and grounding and realism, but then they bring in the bright trans neon greenish yellow color, which brings it back into the comic world. And I just feel like that's a good kind of crossover between a little bit of realism and a little bit of fantasy. And this does have action features built into it, which you don't really need to appreciate, but if you want them, they're there and available for you. The major one is this gear system, which is actually hooked up to the front axle here. Turns this kind of saw type of piece, which ultimately just moves the harvester head, causes that to rotate. So as you move this along on the ground, it's just pushing that forward and causing it to rotate, because without any contact here, there's no gear system going to the axle that this is on. This is pretty just free floating in and of itself, but that right there actually pushes it along, and that's done pretty nicely. It's not completely smooth, especially if you go back and forth like that, but if you just keep going in the same direction, it works out pretty well, and doesn't seem to trip over itself. It has the right ratio to keep the bars always fitting into the small slots. There's a shooter over here which can fire off canisters of the fear gas, and they give you some extras of those back here in the major gas tank, which is going to be used to really spread the fear gas about. This can be opened up. You can rotate all of this back. These are supposed to be like the spreaders on the sides, but you can open this up and get spare ammo here. I like the looks of these things, and I like shooting something other than just plain studs with a stud shooter. But this here can now actually be used to trap an innocent victim inside of there. So you can put a whole minifigure in there, hold them hostage, or work on doing some sort of transformation to them until they get just taken far to the extremes of fear to maybe turn them into a villain themselves later on. It's a nice thing. I think it looks good and really fits into what you expect from a harvester, from Scarecrow, and from the story that goes with this character. Pitchfork gets held on to over here. Has a bunch of stickers used on the top just for a little extra detail. Let's have some metallic notes in them with the kind of copper and silver also. I like it. Batman's helicopter here is built up a lot more than your standard helicopter from LEGO, especially for a single seater. They do so many helicopters for pretty much all of their themes. It starts to get a little bit old and repetitive over time. Every once in a while they introduce a new canopy piece or something like that kind of changes the personality of all of the helicopters from then on that use that same piece. But this is different. This is genuinely different. And I really like the use of the Speed Champions windscreen piece at the front. It's angled forward a little bit, plus they've kind of cut it off visually from the sides with the sideways building. And yeah, it just looks good. It looks like something to really be proud of, and it really breaks the mold relative to most Lego helicopters of the past or the present. I like what they did with the bat tail on it. You know, sometimes they just kind of paste bat-like elements onto things to make it a bat whatever, but this actually kind of feels like it goes. The only thing I don't like here is the tail rotor, which is just too small. Meh, no big deal. Another thing I don't like about this is that a couple things feel a little bit flimsy. So the main rotor assembly can kind of move around. It's not going to fall apart, but it just feels awkward to me. It feels loose because it is loose. Also, the tail, the entire tail boom, has a certain looseness to it. This can actually extend in and out just a little bit. It's a little bit free there. I wish that had been tightened up. However, that is part of a major action feature of this, which honestly doesn't do all that much given how much that you have to build to make it work. But the idea with that is you push from the tail, you push in, and the sides open up. And so by default, you have these cannons on the outside, which don't do anything, but you know they look cool. But then you open that up, and you get the spring-loaded shooters, or it's not spring-loaded, but just the stud shooters inside of that. I actually like how they look, especially if you look at it from above just a little bit. How they kind of angle out like that. That's cool. You know, it looks mean in that way. I'm glad that it doesn't automatically shoot as soon as those deploy. Instead, you get the choice to shoot whenever you want to by just pushing in the side panel. You see that the triggers are resting up against a little bit of the assembly to the inside. So if you want to, you can bring this out even further and shoot them manually, or you can just push in from the side this entire panel and shoots off two at a time. The cockpit area doesn't really have much going on for it on the inside. There's a little bit of a kind of a hint of a heads-up display there, but you know, there's no sticker, there's no print or anything to show you any console detail on the inside, so you do have to use your imagination a little bit. I guess they try to simulate some lights on the inside. I wish that I didn't have to see the yellow, because that really doesn't go with any of the color scheme of the whole thing, but it's just, you know, typical of Lego to use some bright colors on interior build details, not necessarily intended to be shown, but here they are being shown. It's supposed to help kids to find the parts more easily, but I wish that was a little bit darker, you know? This selection of figures to me is a real treat because it introduces not just some new colors, also a bunch of new prints and some new molds for a couple of the characters. This is the new gas mask variant of Batman. You know, he's got the gas mask on, obviously, to protect him against the fear gas. And then Blue Beetle here is looking pretty good with the double molded legs, and also the new Beetle armor piece that's molded and also has wings on the back. You know, I'll show you from different angles, of course. Uses the relatively new, well, new for this year, piece on the back here with the handle in clear. It has just a stud on the front of it, so that actually works out pretty well for this kind of like energy blast that's coming from him. Scarecrow, I think, just looks appropriate. You know, it's not too fancy there. It actually does use a different color for the hair than the hat, which will become more apparent once I spin these around. Killer Moth on the far right there is looking good with the new molded mask, which is appropriate. Now, these legs almost look like they are multi-molded, kind of like this, where they stacked it up. It's just because they printed it so well. They're actually just orange, those legs. They're just purely orange, but they just printed it really well, going all the way around the side. They did not extend that print around the back, however. So when you look at these from the back, you can see just the plain color of the legs. This shows you more clearly the difference between the dark orange and the regular flesh color is what that is. Got the tan arms there. Two different types of wings. You know, they didn't just use the same ones. Nice to be able to have that level of variety, and you can see a little bit more of the Beetle armor coming up from the back. Now let me take some of this stuff off so you can see some more of the details. There we go. That was definitely worth it. So you can see the scarab on the back. It's attached itself for the Blue Beetle. Nice, pretty crisp detailing, you know, fine detailing, multiple colors used in close proximity on the back of Batman, his alternate face. They did right by the back of Scarecrow there, with how things are just stitched up around his face. Don't forget about the farmer as well, you know, who doesn't have any accessories other than just the cap, but I think he looks pretty appropriate. You don't have any alternate face for this one, obviously, because of the cap allowing everything to be seen, but yeah, it's just a perfectly fine, regular citizen figure, I think. Typically, a set like this that introduces multiple new licensed figures, especially in the superheroes ranges, is most desired for those new figures. And sometimes the other stuff, the main stuff that you really pay for, doesn't turn out all that great, or doesn't look as great and isn't as collectible. Not stuff that you'd be as proud to have on a shelf as the figures, but here I really feel like everything turned out pretty well. You know, obviously, like I said, I like the tractor quite a bit, and that can go into any theme, but the Combine is a nice build as well. You know, even with the bright trans neon colors on it, I still feel like it feels pretty believable to me within the context of this universe. And the Batcopter is a nice, pleasant change from the norm, and looks pretty good and has nice shaping to it. You could leave off the stickers and change out the tail and put this into many different themes and different types of worlds. So that's a good mark right there of something that's well designed. It's versatile in its design. So all told, I feel like this was pretty well done and ends up being a pretty good value, especially for folks who do want those figures the most, and end up getting some builds that are worth displaying and fine to play with as well. That's it for my thoughts on this set, and I thank you for your time. Talk to you again soon.